I said touring with Larry, definitely you were paying your dues, and here's a couple examples of that. Oh man, we travel in the winter, and Larry's had this old Dodge van. It didn't have any heat, and so it had the way we kept the van warm while traveling up and down the interstates of America was we'd have a Coleman kerosene heater going in the back of the van with all of us huddled around it.
Right. Wow.
Praying every second that Larry did not lose control of the van on that ice and snow, because it had been crispy critters for sure. Think about it. Liquid kerosene heating the back of the van.
Yeah,
that was the heat of the van.
Right.
And
it could go horribly bad.
Oh, it could have gone horribly bad. Fortunately, it didn't. And then other things about touring that Chitlin circuit at that particular level, at that particular time in history. Like the bass player and I, a lot of time on a couple of Midwest tours and up into Canada and stuff, we drove the equipment truck. The equipment truck was an old station wagon. And all the equipment was piled into the very back of the station wagon, right? And me and James Cloyd would sit, we were driving, and so we were in the two front seats. It barely had a heater, but the heater was kind of superfluous because the whole floorboard in the back seat was missing. So we're high as shit off of carbon monoxide fumes driving down the highways in the middle of the day and at night trying to get to the next gig. And of course, then there was the recreational vehicle that Larry had that in the bathroom there was no floor. So if you had to pee, you would just pee out of you'd open the bathroom door and stand there and try not to fall
through the floor.
Well, there was no floor. But you're peeing and holding on, going 380 bumps. You're peeing all over yourself.
Oh no.
Oh man. So anyway, that's just a little bit of the stuff. There were some pretty hairy and scary moments that happened. I remember traveling with Larry through the Ozark Mountains. We were going up to Kansas City. It was just him and me. We were in Larry's Cadillac. And this happened in the van too. Cops would pull us over in the middle of the night and come around to where I was sitting and ask if I was okay. These are white cops. I'm a white boy, traveling in a car or a van full of black men, all obviously older than me. And I kept, yeah, I'm fine. Why are you asking me? And I got it. And I saw this shit happening in real time. And I just went, oh, I understand now. Times in this country, this country has a very dark history that most people in my situation from where I'm from and how I grew up and stuff, we're not privy to the inner workings of what was going on. Traveling with Larry, this was one of the greatest educational experiences of my life because I learned how a lot of this country really felt about other people in this country. And it was a worrisome moment. And that has always stayed with me. And, it really made quite an impression being pulled over in the Ozarks in the middle of the fucking night by some highway patrol guy.
Right.
With a gun, and his hand on the gun the whole time. It's just, we're a bunch of over-caffeinated, jolly musicians just trying to make it to the next gig, dude.
Right.
So what Larry would do, Albert taught him this, is he'd get a special honorary sheriff or deputy sheriff's badge and license from some small town in Arkansas and stuff like that. And so he'd whip that out, and when he'd show that to whatever cop was harassing us, they'd ease up and let us go. You know, it was nuts. It made no sense. And so, yada yada. One day, we're off the road. We have a gig coming up that weekend at this place, this old East Side club in Little Rock called the Owls Club. And back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, it was a mainstay stop on the Chitlin circuit. My friend Carol D. Bland grew up just down the street from that place, and he saw T-Bone Walker, Jimmy Reed.
It's called the Owls Club?
Owl.
Owls?
The Owls Club.
Owls
That's
Club.
my accent.
Yeah, I got you.
And so it was a legendary Chitlin Circuit Club. B.B. King had played there. You know, everybody had Albert King stuff. So anyway, I go over to Larry's house that Friday afternoon. Sitting at the table, it's this guy I don't recognize. I go, John, I want you to meet Fenton Robinson. And Fenton's got his guitar and he's just playing some T-Bone Walker stuff and all. Fenton didn't talk much. He was quiet. This was after he'd gotten out of jail for the traffic accident and stuff like that, you know. And he was a very gentle and quiet man at this time, and I didn't know him before, so I can't speak about that, his younger days. So we go to this club, and we're playing, and you know, we didn't start playing. First set went until midnight. We didn't finish till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I remember standing next to Fenton, and he had this beautiful high tenor voice. And to this day, I could do this with Larry and Lavelle too. I remember standing right next to him and hearing him sing, and his voice was like a ghost. It floated above the band, above the sound of the instruments, above the noise of the club. It just floated. This beautiful high tenor voice literally floated and filled the whole room. And I'll never forget just looking at him and just, his eyes are closed, his guitar, he's playing rhythm, playing guitar, and he's singing in this beautiful voice. And I was just awestruck. That feeling that came from that man and that hit me, I was just, it was almost akin to a religious awakening or something, you know? And Lord have mercy, the man was so gentle and so nice to me and had such talent, and that was incredible. Then the next time I saw him was, we were playing at Blues up on North Halstead in Chicago with Larry. Place is packed. We're up there playing, and Fenton's in the band. Now, Fenton's in the audience. Larry says, come on up and sit in with us for a second set. Okay. They'd already talked. They knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
So he gets Fenton up there to play. Fenton's leading the band, and I'm playing the second guitar, you know. Larry's sitting down talking to some girl. And all these musicians are in the audience. And Jimmy Johnson is standing in front of me, staring at me.
I've seen him. Yeah.
Intently staring at me with what I perceived at the time was just pure hatred in his eyes. Like, who's this white kid trying to play our music in one of our clubs and stuff? I've never forgotten that stare. I never talked to the man. He wouldn't talk to me. And I understand why I thought he felt that way. I don't know if he did or not. He obviously had an intense stare about him all the time. But it scared me to death. And Fenton would start a new song that I didn't know, and he'd turn around patiently while the band was playing, have him hold the one, and just vamp on that one chord, and he'd show me the riff in real time that he wanted me to play. And I'd sit there and watch him play it a couple times for me, and then I'd play it back until he'd smile and goes, okay, you got it. And then he'd turn around and continue the song. And Jimmy Johnson's just staring at me, and I know he's thinking, shit, man, I knew that riff, you know, I know how to play that stuff. Damn, how come I ain't got the gig? Well, Jimmy, you wouldn't work for $20 a night, and I would, you know. And then that gig, we stayed upstairs at Big Time Sarah's apartment because she was managing the club or something, and stayed in the apartment above. And there was no place to sleep. Me and a couple of the guys of the band slept on the floor. I got put in a closet, big walk-in closet, right? And about 2 o'clock in the morning, this rat runs over me.
Oh, no.
Fuck that shit. Like I said, I paid some dues. So, fuck that shit. I get out, get Larry's keys, and go sleep in the van on Halstead at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Motorcycles going up and down, people raising hell, bumping the van and shit. I didn't care. I fell right asleep. It was nice and cool outside, too.
Right.
It was hot in that apartment. And that way, I kept an eye on the van and the equipment. I did that for 2 nights. But anyway, the next morning, went up to Big Time Sarah's apartment up there with the band. We had a little breakfast and stuff. And Big Time Sarah just put a record on the record player. She'd just gotten it. It had just come out. It was Magic Sam Live on Delmark Records at the Ann Arbor Blues Festival. It had just come out. Magic Sam had been dead for quite some time. A few, over 10 years at that time. About 12 years. And I'd never heard Magic Sam before. So I got turned on to Magic Sam in the apartment above Blues on Halstead by Big Time Sarah. And I was hooked on Magic Sam, boy. Shit. I still play a lot of stuff like him. Him and Luther Guitar Jr. Johnson and stuff like that. Who was another Magic Sam acolyte way before I ever heard of either of them. And he was playing with Muddy Waters, and that's a favorite memory of that time period.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
And I have one more. It happened around 85 or so. We're back at the Owls Club. I just got married that morning, up in the Ozark Mountains, to a little girl that was from Harrison, Arkansas, which was one of the last remaining sundown towns. We all know what that's about. And James Cloyd, who was my best friend and was bass player, and he played bass and recorded on my last album that I did, and he's passed away now, which was tragic. He just got sick and died way too soon, and he one of the gentlest, funniest, most intellectual people I ever met. And James was my best man at the wedding. So we were up there in the middle of the Ozarks, black best man, hillbilly girl that I'm marrying, and we got married by a Cherokee Indian chief that had his marriage certificate from the back of Rolling Stone. So then we have to beat it all the way, and the property that we got married on was a cliff overlooking the Ozarks. It was gorgeous, right? And the house was owned by that Georgia O'Keeffe lady and stuff. And the lady that was watching the house for her had never seen a black person in her life before. And so that was rather interesting. But she didn't have any problems with it. She just never met a black person before. And so that was all cool. It was a great time. It was fun. And then we bust back to Little Rock because I have a gig with Larry that night. Well, on my wedding night at 1 o'clock in the morning, my hillbilly wife from Harrison, Arkansas, is sitting at the end of the stage at a card table in between 2 elderly black gentlemen that were doing the DJ spots in between band sets. And they were passing weed and whiskey back and forth, and she was getting fucked up. And she'd never been in a black club. It was a very unique experience, And that was how we spent our wedding night. She ran out of patience with me many, many decades ago. So.